All right. I'm Cami Turpin. I am a film portrait and I would say experimental film photographer. And I really love cycling, and I haven't done it for years because I'm really excited to always have a camera in my hand, and I can't bring the big ones on my bike. So I'm gonna get back into that someday. How's that? So I kind of feel like other art forms are almost like senses. Like we just experience different parts of the world using, sight or sound or whatever. And so music is like just the hearing part, that sense. And then photography is the visual. But they all kind of come from the same place. They all are about telling stories. They all kind of use symbolism and visual or emotional cues. And so when when I'm reading something, I'm super into literature. So when I'm reading something, I often get an idea for a shot. Sometimes when I'm shooting something, I have an idea for a poem. All the time when I'm listening to music, that is a huge inspiration for me. And in fact, this year, my personal project that I've been working on is inspired by music. So I just feel like they all really work together. I don't really love to separate them at all. It just all kind of feels like part of the same sphere, all the creative senses working together. Also, I believe in everything kind of progresses. So I had an amazing personal project last year, which was based on words. So I was kind of missing, because I went to school for writing, for editing. I'm kind of a writer first. And so I've been missing that part of my life, just writing or connecting words to things. So I thought I'm going to start connecting words to my images. And the way that I did this was really interesting. I printed out about 300 of my pictures, anything that just kind of drew me in from the beginning of shooting to now. And then I would write just about one picture per day. I did 100 in 1 year, and I condensed what I wrote about to 10 words. So I called that the 1,000 Words Project, because by the end I had 100 pictures and 10 words about each of them, 1,000 words. It really helped me understand my own work and the things that I'm really drawn to, because I did all of it by intuition. And again, that mixing the words with the art and the art with the words and all of those things really helped me kind of figure out where I want to go next with my business, with my personal work, and all of those kinds of things. So then when I said, what else am I missing in my life? And it's music. I just have kind of, I was in a symphony for lots of years. I was a music major for a good 3 days, but I did stay in the orchestra. Music teacher for 15 years. It's a huge part of my life. And I've kind of let it go. So when I decided to put that back in to kind of bridge those two projects, my first song was If by Bread, which is, if a picture paints 1,000 words, then why can't I paint you? So I used that song to paint my daughter. So I took it pretty literally, but at the same time, with me, there's always something symbolic. So for her, she's kind of my main subject, my main muse. And I do a lot of what I call self-portraits with her. It's really about me, but I'm using her as a stand-in. But a lot of it is about her as well. And so I thought to myself, I can take 1,000 pictures of her and I never can catch just what's in there. So those kind of two things coming together, the visual of the paint on her and also the idea that I can never quite get there, was all kind of came together in that. And that was like the bridge between those two projects. And it has just really, I just feel like everything kind of builds on itself, builds into the next thing, and I feel like I'm getting into this new space that makes me really happy about how it's working out. I think what it is I was trying to explain to someone how passionate I am about teaching, because this kind of stuff where I feel like you can find just these little connections, the connection in your work that you're connected to yourself, the connection that you have with your audience, the connection to the story. If you can get all of those things in a picture, and it doesn't have to be a conceptual one, it can be a family picture, it can be a portrait, it can be documentary work, anything. I just feel like that's when we really get somewhere with photography and with art. And I'm passionate about explaining that to people and helping them get somewhere deeper. So I could talk about it all the time. Do I want to keep doing it for myself? Absolutely. Yes. So I feel like every now and then I get a glimpse of where all of that comes together. And I'm excited to realize that I'm not at the end of my journey. I'm at the beginning. And I mean, I have decades where I get to keep exploring this, and who knows where it will go. Because if I look at 10 years ago where I was with photography to now, it's completely different. I feel a fear from people that they're going to burn out, or they're going to give it up, or something like that. And I'm not afraid of giving up photography, because I feel like, number one, I'm just going to keep, if I have a break, I will come back to it. So I don't fear ruts or anything like that. But also, if I give it up, it's not what I need anymore. So I also just I want other people to realize there is freedom in creating, that they don't have to be constantly putting out content in order to be a good artist, to be a good business owner, or any of those things. It's really about connecting with your own work. Personal projects for me are the number one thing. It's, I'll do my business and all of those things, but I feel like my personal projects build that. It also allows me to have that creative space that I can also, kind of switch into get work done mode. But the personal projects are what helps me grow technically, creatively, even just, I don't know, spiritually, or even, I'm trying to think of the word, just personally, really understand who I am. Like you said, finding your voice, or how that voice changes. I think I was about to say this before, but I often think of the Beatles. I'm a huge Beatles fan. I only had that to listen to in the car when I was growing up. So, because my dad was just like, that's it. We have to know it all. And I always just think, what would happen if the Beatles had only done Hard Day's Night, and that's like stuck with it forever? We'd never have the White Album, which to me is the thing. So I just keep thinking, like, when's my White Album coming? It's coming. And I don't know what it looks like right now, but the journey is just as fun as knowing where I'm going to get. I feel like it was actually during the pandemic when I felt like there was so many times when my life feels out of control, I will find something that I can control. And for the first time ever, it felt like really there was nothing to control. Like absolutely nothing. We were all just floating. So instead of finding something that I could just say, this is it, I'm going to control this, I'm going to control this. Instead, I really embraced the completely unexpected. I just said, I'm going to just lean into everything I can't control. So that started being all sorts of stuff, cross-processing, film soup, exposing both sides of the roll, anything I could think of. If I saw it, I said, I'm trying it. And because, I don't think fear is in any way helpful for in the creative process at all. So I just said, what am I afraid? What could I possibly be afraid of if I expose both sides of this roll? I maybe lose it all. It's a roll of film. Who cares? So I admit that I'm lucky enough to be able to just throw away a roll of film if I need to do it, but I'm willing to do it. And one of the awesome things about the Find Lab is that they have taken all my experimental stuff. I don't send film soup because I'm respectful. I'll do that myself or send it somewhere else. But if I say to my tech, this one has overlapping frames and it's exciting, this side's red scale and this side's color, it's going to be a mess. Can you just give me some options? Then he just rolls with it. He knows me well enough now that he's like, oh, it's one of these, So I don't know. I've always, no matter what tech I've used, they've always been really, I would say, excited when I'm doing something fun and exciting. They get excited too. So they'll even say, I thought these looked totally different on the different scanners. So did one on Frontier and I did one on Maritsu because look at how different the colors are. And that was, I feel like we're partners in it. And that helps me be able to experiment, which is a big deal for me. because if I felt like my lab wasn't willing to do weird things like over the sprockets and overlapping frames and all those kinds of stuff, then I would have a hard time creating as much as I want to and pushing boundaries, I guess. I went to the Van Gogh exhibit and just shot the walls, you know, like a whole roll of Portrait 800, just maybe it was Portrait 400. Anyway, just like whatever, whenever it changed. And then I came home and just shot whatever over it. It's the most incredible thing. Every single shot's amazing. I mean, it's just completely blind doubles. There's overlapping frames. My daughter turned it into a painting in between portraits by Van Gogh. It's insane. When you stop thinking in frames and start thinking in like a strip of possibilities, it's pretty amazing. Well, let's talk about Cuba. So before we went out shooting, I do not do street photography. Street is like totally foreign to me. I even, I feel a little out of place just not even having my kids, because that's just been my, my subject matter for so long. So when I went to Cuba, I knew it was just going to be something completely different. I was shooting with a completely new kind of camera to me, or at least a new lens. And but I also had my trusty Rebel because, I love my Rebel. And I was a little unsure of myself. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to make a story. And actually, all it took was John just saying, make sure you have a story before you go out there. And then I just kind of thought, well, what is my story? And I had been thinking about it on the entire plane ride over. And the main thing I thought was, I have no idea who these people are. And 3 days is not going to make it happen. I'm never going to understand them in 3 days. So there was some sort of separation between us. And that was the story, was that I was an outsider looking in. So I decided to do doors. I was going to shoot every door I could find, because that was a representation of a separation. But also I was going to free lens them as much as I could. So there was going to be some blur and some risk involved in all of it, because again, for me, the process is just as important as the outcome, if not more. And I felt like shooting that way with that idea for the entire 3 days gave me something to hold on to, that made me realize that my story happens no matter what genre I'm shooting, that it exists everywhere, and that I can find meaningful work. And again, basically make self-portraits wherever I go. And I love those pictures. I treasure them. And I feel like it was sort of the beginning of something for me, where I said that genre doesn't matter. It's all my story. Doing a little dance with chance, everybody.